Hello and welcome. If you've ever studied for a big writing test, chances are you learned how to start an essay with a hook, maybe a catchy question or a surprising fact. And that's a great skill. But when you get to university level writing, you need a different, more powerful kind of opening. So in this explainer, we're going to help you master the tool you need to write strong, clear, and really impressive academic introductions. Let's get started. So here's our game plan for today. First, we'll talk about why that hook you already know isn't always the right tool for an academic paper. Then we're going to introduce its replacement, the academic declarative opening. After that, we'll get some real hands-on practice turning those old hooks into powerful statements. And then we'll use one of those to build a whole introductory paragraph from the ground up. And finally, we'll wrap it all up with the key takeaways you can use on your very next assignment. Okay, let's start with what you already know. Many of us were taught to use a hook to grab the reader's attention, and for standardized tests, that's exactly what you want to do. It works. But academic writing has a different goal, you see. It's not really about surprising the reader, it's about clearly and confidently presenting your big idea. So we're not throwing away an old skill, we're just adding a new, more specialized tool to your writer's toolkit. This slide really puts the difference in a nutshell. On one side, for tests, you have those attention grabbers. On the other side, for university essays, you have something called an academic declarative sentence. The goal totally shifts from surprise to clarity. You want to let your reader know right from the very first sentence exactly where you're going and why they should come along. And that brings us to our main idea today, the academic declarative opening. I think the best way to picture how this works is to think of a funnel, wide at the top and narrow at the bottom. The idea is that you'll start with a broad topic at the wide opening, and then you'll gently guide your reader down to a very specific point at the narrow end. It's actually a pretty simple three-step process. First, you start with a broad statement. This just introduces your general topic. Second, you add another sentence that gives a little context, and that starts to narrow the focus. And finally, step 3, you land on your thesis statement. That's the specific argument you're going to prove in the rest of your essay. So, if we were to put a formal definition on it, here's what it is. An academic declarative opening is a statement that does 3 really important jobs. Job number 1, it introduces your broad topic. Number 2, it shows why this topic is important. And number 3, it gets the reader ready for the very specific argument you're about to make. Now, you might be thinking, doesn't that sound a little, boring? And that's a fair question. But in academic writing, engagement just works differently. Instead of using drama or surprise, you engage your reader by showing them the topic matters, by clearly stating your focus, and by signaling a clear intellectual purpose. You're not trying to entertain them. You're inviting them into a serious, thoughtful conversation, and you're showing respect for their time and their intelligence. All right, enough with the theory, right? Let's get practical. In this next part, we're going to take some of those typical hook-style openings and actually transform them into strong, academic declarative sentences. This is where it's all going to click. Okay, let's look at our first example on the topic of social media. A common hook might be a simple question, right? Something like, did you know that social media affects how we communicate? Now, let's see how we can change that. The academic style would be, social media has significantly influenced patterns of human communication in contemporary society. See the difference? We've moved from a simple question to a really confident statement, and we're using more precise academic words. And there it is. That funnel method in action. We start with a big, wide topic, social media, and the sentence immediately points us to a narrower focus, communication patterns. Right away, your reader knows exactly what part of social media you're going to talk about. Let's try another one, this time about artificial intelligence. A hook might ask, can artificial intelligence really replace human workers? But the academic version makes a strong statement instead. Artificial intelligence has begun to reshape labor markets and employment structures. Again, we're not asking a question, we're stating a fact, a significant development, using formal and specific language. And again, you can see that funnel working perfectly. We've gone from the huge topic of artificial intelligence all the way down to a specific focus on labor and employment. This kind of clarity is exactly what makes an academic opening so strong. Let's do one last one on the topic of leadership. A hook might be, does leadership style really matter? A much stronger academic opening would be, leadership style plays a critical role in shaping organizational performance and employee outcomes. It's direct, it's formal, and it immediately tells the reader what key ideas we'll be discussing. So, just to really lock this idea in, You always want to start with that broad theme, like leadership, and then immediately give your reader a narrower direction, like performance and outcomes. This wide to narrow structure, well, it's the foundation of a really powerful academic introduction. Okay, great. So now you know how to write that powerful first sentence. Let's see how that one sentence becomes the starting point for a whole introductory paragraph. We're going to build one right now, step by step. So we'll start with that strong declarative sentence we just worked on. Artificial intelligence has begun to reshape labor markets and employment structures. This is the top of our funnel, right? It establishes the big, broad topic. Next up, we add a sentence that narrows our focus just a little bit more. We add, this transformation is particularly visible in knowledge-based industries. See? We've gone from all labor markets down to a more specific type of industry. The funnel is working. And finally, we arrive at the narrowest point of the funnel, our thesis statement. This sentence gives our specific argument. This essay argues that artificial intelligence will augment rather than replace professional roles in the technology sector. And just like that, in only 3 sentences, we've gone from a huge topic to a very focused, debatable claim. That's a perfect academic introduction. All right, we have covered a lot here, so let's do a quick recap of the most important things to remember. These are the key points you'll want to think about for your next academic essay. First, and most importantly, always start with a strong, declarative sentence. Second, try to avoid those informal hooks like questions or dramatic statements. Third, remember the funnel. Always move from a general topic to a more specific focus. And finally, number 4, make sure your introduction ends with a clear, concise thesis statement. So you now have a powerful new tool in your academic writing toolkit. You've learned how to move beyond just grabbing attention to actually commanding it with clarity and with purpose. The only question left is, what important academic idea are you going to introduce first? Thanks for joining this explainer.